Welcome to the channel, Scott's Garage HTX. Don't forget the HTX. And this is the newest vehicle in my stable. Well, that's not actually true, actually. This, if you've watched the previous episode, is the car I gave my father several years ago. He kept on calling me up and saying, hey, I want to buy a car that I can tinker around with and take to car shows and go out on Sunday. And he would eventually send me a couple postings of cars, and I'd say, yeah, pick it up, man, it looks good, you'll have fun with it. And he'd always find a reason not to buy the car. Something like, well, the wiper blades go from right to left, and I was really looking for a car that the blades went from left to right. Yeah. Anyway, this is what I got him. I got tired of kind of hearing that after a while, and some of my friends were posting this car. It was going to go to auction. I said, well, maybe you don't have to take it to auction. I snatched it up that day, trailered it out to Georgia where my dad lives, and gave it to him. He's had some great times with this car. He loves it to death. It's still his car. He is just moving, and where he's moving to intermittently between, temporarily I guess, between when they find a new house to live in, doesn't have the space for this car or all this other stuff. So I'm going to take it for a while and just kind of keep it for him, put it in storage, and I'll find some room for it, and I'll have some fun with it for a while. I'm going to drive this car from Georgia all the way back to Houston. We'll do some tidbits on the way, find out more about the Fox body, the Mustang itself. This particular example is an 85. We'll learn a little bit about it, some of the upgrades and updates I've done to this, and also what we've kept for it as stock. This is really a stock example. There are some hidden upgrades that I've done. I'm going to jump on the road here shortly and we'll get started. Well, change of plans. I saw all the stuff that they were loading up in the trucks, and I was not aware. I know they had movers, but then I saw the personal stuff that they were loading up, and I was like, no. I can't leave them like that, right? So I went with them to North Carolina, where their second house is, and helped them unload. So it's the next day. It's just, that's what you have to do sometimes, and help them out. I thought I'd make this a bit of a game going back to Houston, because what is it, almost 1,000 miles from Franklin, North Carolina to Houston, Texas, around about, something like, maybe a little less. I thought I'd make a little game, and a game called Truth. Uh-oh, car, look how, oh boy, dear Lord. That's how close it is to get out of my parents' second home. This is a one-lane road getting out, and they're up in the mountains. Oh, dear Lord. So I thought I'd make a game of this and say true or Scott's an idiot. All about the Fox Mustang. Like this car right here, this exact car, it's got 16,000 miles on it now. I gave this to my dad back several years ago because he wanted a hot rod. No big deal. This thing is painted in jalapeno red. I think there's 12 different colors in 1985 to paint a Mustang. 3 different reds, canyon red and a medium canyon red. I think the namers of the colors just finally decided to give up. You've got 3 reds. They just phoned the last one in. It's medium canyon red. We're done. That's what I think. This car itself is really tight. One of the things I love about the Fox Mustang, my dad had an 88, and the only thing I really remember about that one was I got a lot of tickets in it. Who gives a 17-year-old 88 Mustang GT convertible to take out and run around with in their dates? Well, really cool of him. Where do I go from here? This thing hasn't even caught up. We're going to take a guess. We're going to go this way. Close enough. And anyway, 2 things I like about the Mustang right off the bat is the sound that this Mustang has, the 5.0 had. You just can't beat it. The second thing is this shifter. Oh, precise and so deliberate. I rank it up there. Now, I don't have supercars, you know, and gated shifters, so I can't tell you what that's like. You know, go to another channel. It's not the crowd I run with. And where do I go from here? The shifter is, I just love it. I rank it up with two other shifters. Mazda Miata, if you ever driven a Mazda Miata or MX-5 now, the shifter is just great. And the Honda S2000. The Honda makes a great shifter, and I can't say enough about it. So the game, I thought, let's go to example. So the Fox Mustang was made, true or Scott's an idiot, between 1979 and 1993. And they made over 2.5 million examples of the Fox Body Mustang. True or Scott an idiot? Well, actually, that's true. They did. They made 2.5 million examples of the Fox Body Mustang between 1979 and 1993. It kind of is broken down into two categories. And if you ask the fans of the Mustang group, the Fox Mustang group, even the guy who looked at this car, one of the movers that, you know, had one of these cars, stuff like that, said this. And you can break the Fox Mustang owners or fans of them into two groups. The groups that like the quad headlights, or the group that likes the composite single headlights that are more aerodynamic. And this, of course, has the quad headlights. I think they stopped in 1986. And the composite headlights started in 1987 to 93. So whichever group you're in, I've had both, or I haven't had both. I guess my dad had the 88, which I loved. And then this one. This car drives great, and we'll go over some of the minute changes, some large, some different, you know, some smaller, that I went through to make this car the way it is before I gave it to my dad. First thing I got to do is find a gas station. But again, this shifter, oh man, gotta love it. What I don't love, some of the North Carolina drivers on these roads, they come awfully close to the center line. Ugh. We'll be back. All right, I got gas. These are the days where here's the fuel cap over on this side, and of course I drove over on this side of the gas station, because these are the days when they didn't give you a little arrow telling you what side the fuel cap is on. All right, let's continue on with our game. True or Scott's an idiot? Well, do you know where the Fox Body name came from? Well, the lead designer for the Ford Mustang Fox Body was Jack Telnick. I think that's just how you pronounce his name. And, well, his wife was a bit of a fashionista. She was all hip on all the fashions and everything like that. And, you know, he wanted to kind of pay tribute to his wife. One day she came down to, you know, in Michigan and all these things, they have, you know, all kinds of events to go to for the automakers and stuff like that. She came down, and she was in the wintertime, and she had this shawl thing on with one of those Fox clip-ons, right? The little shawl things with the tail, the classic stuff like that. And he was just put on the project name, or the project, and he proposed that actually, since we're moving on from the Ford Mustang 2, which was, you know, lifeless little car, to just get rid of the Mustang itself and just redesign a car, rename the car since we're redesigning it, and he wanted to name it the Fox. Well, that didn't really go over well with Ford execs, and they pushed back on that, but he was digging his heels in. I mean, if you want me to design and help design this car, that's what I want to name this whole project. So they came to a resolution. They said, okay, we'll name the project and the platform the Fox, but we're not changing the Mustang. Thank goodness they didn't change the name to Fox Body, and kept the name as a Mustang. True? Or am I an idiot? Well, I'm an idiot. That has nothing to do with it at all. Actually, the Fox platform was started design in 1979, and there was this is true, a idea of making the Ford Mustang a front-wheel drive vehicle. And popular opinion stopped that. Public opinion stopped that. When they put that out to the public, no. So, one of the rare times that maybe audio manufacturers listen, and they did not. They kept it rear-wheel drive. But think about something that did on the Fox platform be front-wheel drive, and I think that was the Ford Probe. Well, you know where the Ford Probe is now. So, there. No, they weren't going to name the Mustang the Fox. A little bit more about this car as I go through what I think is pretty scenic. I'm used to plains and dirt and stuff like that driving through Texas, and it's been a long time since I've driven through the foothills, I guess, of the Appalachians, and this is nice. This car, it's raining. I would have known this if it wasn't raining or anything, but the intermittent system for the wiper blades on this car is superb. It actually has intermittent light wipers, and it has a dial on it. It's not a clicky one where you click like that. And it has these preset type of intermittent intervals. This is actually just has a smooth dial on it, and you can dial in the exact amount of intermittency that you have on the wiper blades, and it's really nice. Good job, Ford. I actually like that. It also has, and I'm going to bring you down if I can. There we go. It also has a data center right here, and I know there's all types of styles of data centers during this time. This one right here has just lights and low fuel, but it looks like I have a brake light issue out. Maybe one of them's out. I'll check it out later. That was not on when I first started the trip, so maybe, and I hope it's not related to the rain. I'm going to try to put you back. There we go. I hope it's not related to the rain, but when I get back to using it, I'll check that out. That's pretty cool. Good job, Ford, on those two things. I really like it. This car right here tracks beautifully. I can let go of the steering wheel, and it's smooth as ever. There's no wobble in the tires, no odd noises in the suspension. The brakes, no wobbling, no steering feedback. Really tight, and the steering is really tight. So this car, it's like 16,000 miles on it, and it tracks beautifully. I wish I had cruise control, but again, it's going to be a comfortable ride all the way back to Houston as far as that goes. This car is well made, put together. There's no, if I were to gripe about one thing at the moment that I need to fix, and that's that squeaky steering wheel, not steering wheel, but speedometer gauge. So that's going to have to be changed. Back to, is it true or Scott an idiot? And through the course of the Fox Body Mustang run, they had lots of versions or special editions of the Fox Body Mustang. They had a 350 version, they had a SVO version, they even had a Twister 2 version in 1985, the year of this car. The Twister version, Twister edition, was a edition in 1970. I think it was 15 years prior to the Twister 2 version or edition of it, and it was sold in the Kansas City market with a track back option and so forth. And the Twister 2 version in 1985, I think, had air conditioning, a special radio, and a premium radio, and a clock. And that's all true. But is it true, or is Scott an idiot, that in 1990 they had a 7-Up version of the Fox Body Mustang? The story goes is that it was an emerald green, and it was a promotion with 7-Up and NCAA during its basketball finals, and it was all hinged off of contestants or people making half-court shots during the finals of the NCAA. Is that true? I had to stop and get some food for myself and some fuel for the car. Quick note on this car. See those covers on the fog lights there and over there? Those are original covers, and they're actually quite rare because well, several things used to happen to these things. One, people would lose them. Two, they get damaged. Three, since they were rare and desirable, they get stolen. But the main thing that would happen to these things is they'd get melted. That's because people would turn the fog lights on and forget they had them on and had the covers on, and they would damage the covers themselves. So the map says I'm about 10 hours away from Houston, and it's about time to play some more of our True or Scott an Idiot. Is it true that this car has a lot of European influence, mainly from Germany? That's where the Recaro, I think Recaro seats are housed in Germany, and that's where the influence of these seats kind of came in. There's a big tie between Ford Mustang Fox Body and Recaro seats, and these style Recaro seats here. I don't know if these Recaro themselves, but they definitely have Recaro influence to them, and they're fairly comfortable. So the tie between there and the European, and people say this has a European influence to it, mainly from Germany, and you can see that in the seats and the ties that they had. Is that true? No, that's not true. Scott's an idiot. Basically, there is a European influence to this car, people say, in the way it looks, but there is a European influence in the fact that there were 3 teams that put together the design of this car. 2 from Detroit and 1 from Italy. Jack, the guy I mentioned before, was the head of the European style or design in Europe for Ford. And Gia was the company that helped influence and design parts of this car. As far as this car goes, these seats, like I said, are fairly comfortable. They're Recaro style looking seats. I would say they are adjustable in the front. I can adjust how far out the seat goes to support my bottom of my thighs or hamstrings. And also on this side over here, I have a knob, and the bolstering on the thighs, I can move in and out by twisting this knob back and forth, counterclockwise or clockwise. Not bad. I am definitely not uncomfortable. The seating position is very nice. Sometimes in cars, my knees start to hurt just because, but what I can do with this car here is adjust this front part of the seat and adjust it out to support the bottom of my knees, and my knees have not ached one bit, and I don't have cruise control. So yeah, that's a good indicator of good seats, for me anyway. Continuing on, I think this is round 5 of True or Scott an Idiot. And we talked about the interior, and these seats, I once mentioned that the seats are really, really comfortable. In 1979, when they redesigned the Mustang, they made the interior bay, interior compartment, a lot more livable, larger, and they say they can accommodate 4 people comfortably. Well, yeah, we can go with that. I mean, it was better than it was before. We can definitely go with that. And each year, they updated the interior a little bit more, from fully coordinated colored door cards, interiors. They had all kinds of sport seats and comfort seats and adjustable seats, and the interior just got more and more livable and more premium as it went on. But is it true, or Scott an Idiot, that they did not give you a leather seating option until 1990? Well, that apparently is true. Even I've been trying to disprove this for the last week or so, researching this car. And for one, I've never seen a leather option Ford Mustang before 1990. 2, I can't find any mention of it either. The only thing I can find is that's when they started allowing or having the option for leather seating. It seems like 1989 and 1990 was sort of pivotal years about updating the Mustang. In '89, I know they did some mapping stuff that was allowed the cars to be more hot rodded or moddable. You know, they went from I think it's called a speed density type airflow system to a mass airflow system, and I believe that allowed you to start chipping a car, and you could, you know, then tune your car a little bit better and have those, you know, modifications for hot rodders. It didn't really, going from that to the mass airflow sensor didn't do anything for power on a stock car. It just allowed you to have more options when you wanted to hot rod it. But in 90, there was a couple things they did, quite honestly. Well, one was passive restraints, airbags. That was a government mandate. And when you had airbags then, you could not have a tilt steering wheel because of the airbag system they had in there. Two, they had clear coat paint in 1990. But if you were to wax this car right now, you would actually get jalapeno red on your cloth that you were waxing on. And after 1990, there was a clear coating as well. And then you had the leather option that went on there as well. And I think they had some other stuff like pockets on the door cards or seating or something like that. But it seemed like, you know, 1989, 1990 is when they did, you know, several updates to the Mustang. Get some money flowed in or something like that, or they needed to compete with other muscle cars in their luxury. Well, one thing about this car, I find a gear, is we changed out the rear end to 373s from, I think they are maybe 308s, maybe 324s, something like that. Real tall gear, basically. That's done a couple things. One, it's picked the car up a little bit, made it a little bit more lively. But first gear and a little bit of second gear, they're short. I mean, you jump on it in first gear and you're switching gears, going to second relatively quickly. Second gear is kind of similar but a little bit longer, and then after you get out of that, you're fine. With it having a fifth gear overdrive, you know, I'm going 75 right now, and I'm running about 2,500. That's great, quite honestly. One thing that we did do when we changed the gearing is what happened was the speedometer, of course, we would be going 45 miles an hour and the thing would be pegged at 85. You know, the speedometer is way out of whack. And my dad, it was just a good car for my dad to have because he could also tinker with it and as well as drive it and work on it, which he likes to do. So he researched it and found out the right sprocket, the number of teeth on the gear within the transmission from the speedometer cable, and he is the one who went in there and fixed that and turned over to the right number of teeth on the gearing for the speedometer, and now it reads pretty much right on the money. Some of the other things we did, well, I put in a stronger clutch when we had some oil leaks. Of course, the car this low mileage, the rear seal was leaking, so pulled out the transmission and replaced the rear seal and put a stronger clutch in it. Beyond that, those things, those were really the only updates to this car. Now there's been some repair. I had mentioned I'm going to probably try to figure out the speedometer cable. It seems to be squeaking or rubbing a little bit. It's making some noise, so we'll address that hopefully. The other thing was, he called me up one time and he said, hey, the car's kind of running warm. The AC's not warm at all, or cold at all. So I knew exactly, immediately what was going on. It was the clutch fan. It was going bad. It's a common issue. And I'll give you a Scott tip. When replacing the clutch fan on this car, find an NOS piece. The aftermarket pieces, I don't really know if you're going to be happy with that. I don't care what their advertising says. Go with an NOS because you'll be much more happy with that as far as its longevity and its performance. I wouldn't go to a flex fan or anything like that. If you're going to keep the motor stock, I would keep that stock. Other things on this car, stock. In 1985 was the last year for carbureted box body Mustangs on the GTs. And then they went to EFI. This carburetor is worked with Holley and Ford in conjunction. They worked together to get this carburetor in the here and meet all the EPA and emission standards. In turn, it's kind of a vacuum nightmare. And one of the first things hot rodders did to improve performance, and after these things started to age, those carburetors started to fail, they would just, rather than have to go through all the tuning that exists to get this carburetor right, it's much easier to just put in an aftermarket poly carburetor in this car and move on. Well, I didn't do that. Fiddled and fiddled and fiddled. When I got this car, it was a complete dog, and I knew the secondaries weren't opening. And it helped me actually get a decent price for the car, but I didn't know if I was going to be able to fix the secondaries on the Holly Ford carburetor, or if I was going to have to just go to an aftermarket piece. Long story short, this is the original carburetor. It runs great. Secondaries open. There's no performance issues on this car. This car has 210 horsepower advertised from the manufacturer. It might be a little less, might be a little bit more. Aftermarket exhaust on. Oh, it's got the aftermarket exhaust on it. So that's one thing I just forgot about. But that's moving up. I think in '84 the horsepower is 175, and then they went to 210 horsepower in 1 year. Quite a jump. And then they went to EFI, and I think that was 200 horsepower, but much more reliable. And I think probably the torque and the curve of the horsepower is probably a lot better with that EFI. I know it doesn't look like it now, and maybe I was just too cautious and premature, but I pulled off the side of the road because it was raining so hard. The highway was flooding. The highway over there was flooding. There's no lights on the highway. It was nothing but semis, and it's middle road construction. And the car started to, it started getting really deep. I mean, it was at least halfway up the tires on the highway, because we weren't going but 2 or 3, 5 miles an hour, and then semis were passing you, spraying. You couldn't see anything. I've got, old wipers, not old wipers, but old technology that, I couldn't see a thing. And the last thing I wanted to do was wreck this car because I was impatient and wanted to get home. And all I had to do is pull over. So that's what I did. I pulled over. I'm staying at a hotel. I'm less than 2 hours away from my house. Gee whiz. Well, that was unplanned, but safer than sorry. Let's get going. And it gives us an opportunity to play one more of our game. The 1985 for the Fox body, I don't know what year, was the first car to use Velcro. Don't believe me? Right here. Right there. First car to use Velcro. I know Velcro was invented in the 1950s, or at least the trade name was. But I've never seen it on any other cars. And is that true? Or is Scott an idiot? Honestly, I don't even know. I just made it up. But I'm going with true, because, well, I'm going to leave it up to you to prove me wrong, because I don't know of any other car that has Velcro on it before this car. Now, prove me wrong. Go out there in your cars. I don't think you're going to find it on the internet. It's not going to be one of those, information things that are going to be out there on the internet that I think is going to be there. So go out in your cars, old cars, find Velcro on a car that's not on a Fox body. What is the most interesting or goofiest thing on this car? Well, it's got to be this map light. That thing's goofy. What's the coolest thing on this car? It's got to be the air cleaner lid. Just looks cool. That's the most tangible, coolest thing on this car, if you ask me. It should be warm by now. The most intangible, if you can call it intangible, thing on this car, well, it's got to be the action of this shifter. So cool. Works so great. And maybe a close second is the exhaust. What's the most annoying thing on this car? Well, That's got to be having to open up the glove compartment to get to the fuel door. By far. Well, at least the streets are dry. You guys keep on keeping on.